Imagine making like the absolute boldest possible claim you could ever make in your industry
Right.
and instantly, just sparking this bitter generational war with the exact childhood idols you grew up worshiping.
Oh, the worst nightmare.
Exactly. And then suddenly you find yourself in possession of the secret vault of unreleased music from a disgraced legend that could theoretically actually prove you right.
But you can't ever release it.
But you can never release it. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So today our mission is to really dissect the career trajectory of R&B singer Jacquees.
Yeah, this is a wild one.
It really is. We are zeroing in on this massive cultural shockwave he created when he controversially declared himself the king of R&B.
Which, I mean, you talk about putting a target on your own back.
Exactly. And then there's this fascinating, almost mythological what if scenario involving those unreleased sessions with R. Kelly.
Yeah, the hidden vault.
Right. But to really understand the mechanics of this, we aren't just looking at the music. We are exploring the high personal cost of relentless ambition
Uh,
and the radical grounding force of fatherhood that basically forced him to rewrite his entire approach to fame.
it's a huge pivot. And, we're pulling all these insights from a really brilliant breakdown by YouTube creator Garrett S. Moore.
Yes, his channel is fantastic.
It is. Through his Breakfast with Garrett series, Moore analyzes this highly revealing interview Shock did on The Breakfast Club.
Right, the infamous interview.
Exactly. And what makes Moore's framework so compelling is that he isn't just reacting to the gossip of it all.
No, he goes way deeper.
Right. He uses these interviews as literal masterclasses.
Yeah.
He's teaching his audience how to navigate high-profile adversarial conversations while really unearthing the raw truth about how an artist like Jacquees manages the intense pressure of his own narrative.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because a few years back, Jacques steps up to the microphone and just point blank declares that he is the king of R&B.
Yeah, just drop the bomb.
Just dropped it. And in the context of Garrett S. Moore's breakdown, the Breakfast Club hosts bring this up because, it remains one of the defining viral moments in modern R&B history.
Without a doubt.
And Jacquees openly admits in the interview that making this claim was a profound double-edged sword.
Well, sure.
On one hand, it achieved the ultimate goal of modern marketing, which is absolute ubiquity. Like the brand awareness skyrocketed overnight.
Everyone knew his name.
Everyone. But the shadow side of that hypervisibility is hypercritique.
Yeah, that's where it gets dangerous.
Right, because when you claim a throne, you fundamentally alter the lens through which the public consumes your art. Audiences, critics, they all stop listening to his music casually.
Oh, they put it under a microscope.
Literally a microscope. They began dissecting every vocal run, every lyric, every production choice, actively looking for flaws just to disqualify his claim.
And that's the thing. It's like it forces an artist to live in two completely different realities simultaneously.
What do you mean?
Well, you have the external reality, right? Where you are constantly defending your right to exist against this onslaught of public criticism.
Right.
And then you have this internal, highly guarded reality where, your ultimate validation is just sitting on a hard drive, completely hidden from the world. And we'll get to the R. Kelly stuff, but it's a crazy dynamic.
But doesn't that strategy completely backfire if it destroys your peace of mind? Like forcing you to spend years defending your basic right to exist in the space.
It's a huge risk.
Is this kind of polarization actually a brilliant calculated marketing strategy because it guarantees relevance? Or did he just accidentally walk into a trap that hijacked his career?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Jacquees didn't just stumble into a trap. He actually tapped into a deeply ingrained, almost structural psychological cycle in the entertainment industry.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, during the interview, he credits Kanye West for explicitly defining this phenomenon. It's the love you, hate you, love you cycle.
The Kanye cycle, right.
Exactly. And understanding the mechanics of this cycle is honestly essential for any artist trying to achieve longevity in the streaming era.
But how does that actually work in practice, though? Because it just sounds exhausting.
Oh, it is exhausting, but it's also entirely predictable. Like when an artist first breaks through, they are in that initial love you phase.
A honeymoon phase.
Right. The public roots for them because they represent fresh potential. And crucially, they don't threaten the established hierarchy yet.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
But the moment that artist achieves real success and their confidence scales up to match it, or in Jacquees' case, when that confidence manifests as declaring himself the undisputed king,
Which is huge.
The public psychology aggressively shifts. That triggers the hate you phase. The collective audience suddenly feels this overwhelming urge to humble the artist, to put them back in their designated place.
Which perfectly explains why the internet suddenly mobilized to critique his every move. They needed to prove the crown didn't fit.
Precisely. And the algorithm actually rewards this phase immensely.
Of course it does.
Right, because outrage drives engagement far more effectively than passive enjoyment.
Sad but true.
But here is the critical mechanism of surviving it. If an artist endures the hate you phase without breaking, without retreating, and without changing their core identity, they eventually age out of the controversy.
Into the second love you phase.
Exactly. The public begins to respect the sheer resilience. That initial arrogance is retroactively reframed as justified confidence.
Wow.
Yeah, and Jacques explicitly states that he views his album, Mood 2, as his official entry back into this second love you phase. He took the arrows, weathered the storm, and now people are ready to embrace him as a seasoned veteran.
That resilience requires thick skin, though, especially when you consider who was actually firing those arrows.
It wasn't just trolls.
No. This wasn't just anonymous accounts on Twitter trying to get a viral hit. The source material highlights a massive, highly publicized generational disconnect.
Yeah, the pushback from the OGs.
Jacquees was taking heavy fire from legitimate, established R&B veterans, titans of the genre, guys like Tyrese and Tank.
Which introduces a completely different layer of psychological pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's one thing when the general public turns on you. It's another entirely when your musical forefathers publicly reject you.
And you can hear the genuine frustration when Jacquees breaks this down. He clarifies a major nuance that the internet outrage machine deliberately stripped away.
What did he say?
He says, and I quote, "I meant king of R&B for my generation."
Right. He wasn't talking about all of history.
Exactly. He wasn't trying to overthrow Marvin Gaye or erase the 90s. He wanted to define his own era for his own peers.
Makes sense.
He even says he wishes those veterans had debated him on their specific terms rather than taking it as a personal attack on their legacies.
R&B operates very differently than hip-hop in this regard.
How so?
Well, hip-hop is inherently competitive. Claiming you're the greatest is a foundational part of the art form. It's expected.
Right. Everybody says they're the best rapper alive.
Exactly. R&B, however, treats its lineage with a reverence that honestly borders on the sacred.
That's a great point.
The older generation views themselves as the institutional gatekeepers of soul. To them, titles like king cannot just be self-appointed via an internet viral moment.
Right. You can't just tweet it.
No, they believe it must be bestowed after decades of cultural endurance. So when a young artist bypasses that hierarchy, it feels like an existential threat to the struggle those veterans endured to build the genre in the first place.
But the personal sting of that gatekeeping is what really stands out in the interview. Jacques points out a highly specific disappointment regarding Tyrese.
Oh, this part was rough.
He reminds everyone, I was born in 94. He grew up watching Tyrese star in movies like Four Brothers.
Right.
Tyrese was a literal childhood idol for him. Imagine walking into an industry event, seeing a guy whose posters might have been on your wall, and realizing he is looking at you with complete disdain.
It is the brutal reality of graduating from a fan to a peer.
Exactly. Jacquees mentions seeing Tyrese at events and feeling this undeniably icy reception. And what's really poignant is that Jacques admits he still can't help but like the guy purely because of that lingering childhood attachment.
That's tough.
But that rejection served as a massive wake-up call for him. It was the moment he realized the elders were never going to coddle him. He had to put his blinders on and carve out his own space, regardless of who he offended.
And what makes this entire dynamic so endlessly fascinating is the timing of what happened next.
Yes.
Because while the internet was mocking him, and while the veterans of his genre were actively trying to strip him of his self-appointed title, Jacquees experienced a private moment of validation that entirely altered his internal reality.
This is the part of the deep dive that absolutely rewired how I view this entire controversy. We have to open the door to the secret vault.
The Chicago session.
The Chicago sessions. Right after Jacques makes this polarizing claim, while he is in the absolute deepest trenches of public backlash, he gets a call.
And not just any call.
No. R. Kelly flies Jacquees, along with his core crew, Dage, Darnell, and Nash, out to a studio in Chicago.
Yeah.
And according to Jacquees, the very first thing R. Kelly called him when he walked through those studio doors was King of R&B.
What's fascinating here is the mechanics of artistic validation. The public, and even his peers were demanding he prove his worth right.
Right.
But behind closed doors, the man who arguably held the undisputed architectural blueprint for modern R&B looked at this young artist, bypassed all the internet noise, and just handed him the crown.
And it went far beyond a polite greeting. R. Kelly watched Jacquees' work and openly praised his process.
He called him an alien, didn't he?
He called him an alien. He praised the unique, unorthodox way Jacquees was laying down tracks, telling him, there ain't a lot of people like that. Don't let nobody change you.
Wow.
To be called an alien by a musical savant means your process defies standard logic, but achieves undeniable results.
And to really understand the exclusivity of this moment, Garrett S. Moore's breakdown highlights a brilliant contrast provided by the Breakfast Club host, DJ Envy.
Oh, the hotel room story. Yes.
Tell him about it.
So, DJ Envy shares that he was also once flown out to Chicago by R. Kelly with the intention of collaborating on a mixtape.
And DJ Envy is a massive deal.
Exactly. He is a highly influential radio personality with immense power in the industry. But instead of being welcomed into the studio, Envy was left sitting in a hotel room for 2 days straight, completely ghosted, until he finally just gave up and flew home.
That contrast perfectly illustrates the capricious power dynamics of the industry.
It really does.
It shows that Kelly's validation couldn't just be bought with radio influence or industry status. Envy got ignored, while Jacquees, the controversial kid currently being dragged by the entire internet, was invited into the inner sanctum.
Right.
And he didn't just get advice, he walked away with tangible assets.
25 songs. Kelly sent Jacquees a batch of roughly 25 tracks via email.
That is insane.
Jacquees notes that he currently has 2 of them downloaded right on his phone. He claims you can instantly tell Kelly wrote them just by the distinct cadence, the unique vocal structure, the way the melodies land.
Yeah, that undeniable musical DNA.
Which forces us to confront the central premise of this entire discussion, the ultimate alternate timeline.
Oh, this is the big what if.
Jacquees openly states regarding the backlash from veterans like Tank, he says, dang, I wish I would have popped out with Kells. I would have shut all these guys up.
So let's dissect the mechanics of that.
Please.
If Jacquees had dropped a fully realized collaborative album with R. Kelly right at that moment, which, keep in mind, was just before Kelly was federally indicted and locked up,
The timing is wild.
would the sheer musical, undeniable quality of the project have actually silenced the critics and solidified his king status? Or would the gravity of R. Kelly's controversy have created a black hole that swallowed Jacquees' career entirely?
That is the million-dollar question.
If we look at this strictly through the lens of industry mechanics, it's a paradox. On a purely musical level, within the insular, purist world of R&B, releasing those tracks would have been a checkmate.
Right, you can't argue with the music.
To have the defining architect of the genre ghostwriting and producing a project for you provides this impenetrable shield of legitimacy. Veterans like Tank and Tyrese would have been forced to concede that Kelly recognized a generational talent in Jacquees.
But the music industry doesn't operate in a vacuum, you know? It is deeply tethered to cultural timing.
Exactly. Culturally, releasing that album at that specific moment would have been a catastrophic collision.
A total disaster.
The timing coincided perfectly with the peak cultural saturation of the surviving R. Kelly documentary and the impending legal reckoning. If Jacquees had tethered his brand to Kelly's sinking ship, the actual music would have been rendered entirely irrelevant.
Nobody would have cared about the vocal runs.
Not at all. The media matrix wouldn't be discussing vocal arrangements. The narrative would exclusively frame Jacquees as an artist who aligns himself with a predator for the sake of a hit.
Oh, yeah.
The resulting pressure would have likely triggered immediate tour cancellations, streaming platform blacklists, and a permanent stain on his brand.
So, by sheer luck of timing, Kelly getting locked up before they could organize a release actually saved Jacquees from the ultimate PR disaster.
Unintentionally saved his career.
But it leaves him with something arguably more powerful for his own psychology.
Yeah, the concept of unheard proof.
I love this idea. It is like a nation possessing a nuclear deterrent.
Well,
You don't ever have to actually push the button or drop the bomb for the weapon to be effective. Just the mere fact that you possess it and that you know you possess it entirely dictates how you walk into a room and how you carry yourself.
That is the perfect analogy. Jacquees holds these tracks on a hard drive as theoretical proof of his greatness. It constitutes a private musical mythos. When he is scrolling through Twitter and seeing a critic dissect his latest single, or when an interviewer tries to undermine him, he can literally pull out his phone, look at those audio files, and remind himself that he was anointed by the previous regime.
It's a psychological anchor.
It functions exactly as an internal anchor of unshakable self-belief.
But maintaining that level of internal belief while constantly battling external narratives requires an immense, almost dangerous level of focus.
Oh, it consumes you.
And the source material makes it clear that while he was pouring all of this energy into defending his crown and building his artistic mythos, the hyper-focus on the hustle was actively dismantling his reality.
The inevitable collision between the art an artist attempts to project
Yeah.
and the real life they're actually living.
Here's where it gets really interesting. In the interview, they bring up his highly publicized relationship with Deion Sanders' daughter.
Right, they were engaged.
They were. And the hosts probe him on it, essentially asking, what happened to getting on one knee? And Jacques immediately corrects the premise.
What does he say?
He says, I didn't get on one knee, I just didn't make it to the wedding.
Oh, wow.
The commitment was formalized, but the execution completely unraveled.
And it unraveled in a particularly isolating way, too.
Yeah. He came home from a tour and the house was empty. The relationship collapsed while he was physically away, grinding out his career.
Brutal.
And when they dissect the root cause of the breakdown, it exposes this fascinating dilemma about the dangers of crafting artistic narratives. It all centered around a specific musical project he was working on with his collaborator, Dage.
Ah, the friend zone project.
Yes. Jacquees and Dage were meticulously building this project titled Friend Zone.
Right.
The entire conceptual framework of the album was projecting a perspective of love, but strictly bound within the parameters of a platonic friendship.
A blurry lines kind of vibe.
Exactly. They were selling an aesthetic, a very specific vibe of complicated, blurry boundaries. But to sell that aesthetic, they had to inhabit it. They were constantly together building this world.
And this is where the mechanics of a modern album rollout become incredibly dangerous to an artist's personal life.
Because his real-life fiancée grew deeply suspicious.
Naturally.
Jacques admits that he completely compartmentalized his life. He deliberately kept his fiancée locked out of his creative process.
Having to say.
Huge. He wouldn't let her see how the sausage was made. He was building this intense friend zone world with Dage and keeping his actual partner on the outside. So naturally, when his fiancée eventually showed up at a video shoot and witnessed them acting out this complicated dynamic on camera, she immediately felt something was fishy.
Garrett S. Moore breaks this down brilliantly in his analysis. He highlights the creator's dilemma.
Oh, I found this part fascinating.
Yeah, in today's highly saturated market, artists often have to rely on a form of method acting to sell a product.
Right.
If you are selling a heartbreak anthem, you have to project a lifestyle of isolation and pain. If you are selling a friend zone concept, you have to mold your immediate environment to make that specific merchandise feel authentic to the consumer.
But the people living in your house aren't consumers.
Yeah.
They aren't props. You can't run a marketing campaign on your fiancé.
Precisely. The failure here wasn't necessarily the art itself. It was the failure to communicate the illusion.
Yes.
If you are method acting a complicated relationship for a music video, but you actively exclude your real partner from understanding that it's a performance, you are actively creating a vacuum of information.
And suspicion always fills the vacuum.
Exactly. In any relationship, suspicion will immediately rush in to fill that vacuum. Jacquees acknowledges that when the pressure mounted, he chose his business and his collaborative aesthetic over the security of his real-world relationship.
The tragic irony of it is staggering. He was putting all of his energy into meticulously crafting an artistic narrative about being in the friend zone, and the very act of selling that illusion to his fans destroyed his actual real-world engagement.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
He basically manifested his own breakup by pretending to be in a complicated relationship for streaming numbers.
But the way he reflects on it now at 32 years old reveals significant psychological growth.
It really does.
He acknowledges the tactical mistakes. He says, dang, I could have did this differently. But he doesn't wallow in it. He leans heavily on his faith, stating a firm belief that God makes no mistakes.
Right.
He maintains vocal respect for his ex, and crucially, he refuses to weaponize his platform against her. Even when she posts things on the internet, he refuses to engage in the digital mudslinging.
Which is a massive pivot for a guy who literally built the foundation of his fame by engaging in internet controversy during the King of R&B era.
It's night and day.
It shows he has finally learned to separate public relations for his music from public relations for his real life, But that level of maturity doesn't just appear out of nowhere.
No, it rarely does.
The source material points to a very specific, undeniable event that forced him to rapidly reconstruct his entire worldview.
The introduction of a completely unshakable grounding force.
Fatherhood. The birth of his son, Snow Daisy. And before we even get into how it changed him, Jacquees uses the interview to aggressively shut down a pervasive internet rumor.
The name rumor.
Yes, people assumed that the middle name, Daisy, was some sort of homage or connection to the Sanders family. Jacquees emphatically clarifies that Daisy is his grandmother's name and that his son was always, from day one, going to carry his last name.
The fact that he even has to clarify the origin of a middle name highlights the suffocating level of scrutiny surrounding the child.
Seriously.
The internet was trying to construct a narrative that the wealth, legacy, and sheer gravitational pull of Deion Sanders' family were somehow overshadowing Jacquees' legitimacy as a father.
And that is the one narrative that he refuses to let slide. He is deeply offended by the rumor that Deion Sanders is quietly taking care of everything behind the scenes.
He was not having that.
Not at all. Jacquees paints a very clear, very deliberate picture of his daily grinding involvement in his son's life. But establishing that routine required an intense legal strategy.
This raises an important question about the hidden mechanics of co-parenting when high-profile brands and massive wealth are involved. Like, what exactly did he have to do to secure his position?
He went on the offensive legally. He says, I went and got my paperwork right. And this detail blew my mind. He willingly, proactively put himself on child support.
Which runs completely counter to the standard tabloid narrative we see with celebrities, where it's usually this bitter, protracted legal war to avoid financial obligation.
Exactly. But Jacquees utilized the court system strategically. He says he did it to ensure he had undeniable, legally protected time with his son and to guarantee a stress-free life.
That's smart.
By forcing the issue through the courts, he removed all the emotional leverage from the dynamic.
It is a highly sophisticated approach to conflict resolution. By establishing a formalized legal baseline of financial responsibility, he eliminates the gray areas that usually breed resentment in co-parenting. It essentially says, the financial obligation is locked, the courts have ruled, now we can remove money from the conversation entirely and focus strictly on my physical presence in this child's life.
And that physical presence is relentless. He breaks down his daily mechanics. He is up at 6 a.m. He gets Snow dressed. He feeds Snow, all before he even considers his own needs for the day. He integrates Snow into his demanding career, bringing him on the road. He's got this toddler doing boxing drills, throwing footballs.
That's fully involved.
Fully. He hasn't just hired a team of nannies. He is doing the actual unglamorous labor of raising a human being.
And you cannot sustain that level of constant granular responsibility without fundamentally altering your environment.
No way.
A 6 a.m. wake-up call with a toddler is entirely incompatible with the lifestyle of a young, single R&B star navigating the club scene.
He explicitly states how it forced him to curate his inner circle. He says, I don't even play by my folks, period. I always keep them soldiers with him.
Right, the vetting process.
His vetting process for who gets to be in his physical proximity has become extreme. His entourage isn't just a group of friends anymore. They are a security apparatus.
Exactly.
Everyone has to be trusted implicitly because they are no longer just interacting with an artist. They are operating in the vicinity of his son.
It represents a total structural shift in his matrix. Previously, his entire world was egocentric.
Right, it was all about him.
Every decision was calibrated to defend his crown, elevate his brand, or prove his worth to the veterans. Now the absolute center of gravity has shifted outside of his own body.
But I want you, the listener, to think about the sheer weight of this reality. Think about the pressures of trying to raise a child, not in a quiet suburb, but inside the glaring, unforgiving spotlight of the entertainment industry.
While being tethered to two highly scrutinized families.
Exactly. The hosts press him on this. They ask if he harbors any fear about raising Snow in this hyper-public environment.
What does he say?
Jacquees doesn't flinch. He says no. He leans on his faith, and he delivers this incredibly potent piece of philosophy. He says, he's born in, not sworn in.
Born in, not sworn in. It's a brilliant way to frame the reality of inherited fame.
But let me ask you the hard question. Is that philosophy actually a healthy survival mechanism, or is it incredibly naive?
How do you mean?
Well, can you really assume a child will just naturally adapt to intense public scrutiny just because they were born into it? Or is it just a necessary coping mechanism because you can't exactly hide the kid in a bunker for 18 years?
I don't believe it's naive, actually. I think it is an essential psychological armor for both the father and the son.
Okay, unpack that.
If Jacques lives in a state of constant anxiety about the public eye, he will inevitably transmit that fear to his child.
That's true. Kids pick up on that.
Exactly. By adopting the born and not sworn in mantra, he's dictating that this chaotic, high profile environment is actually Snow's natural habitat.
Like it's just his normal.
Right. He isn't an outsider who has to learn the rules of a dangerous new city. He is a native. Jacques connects it directly to survival genetics, suggesting that winning the biological lottery to be born means the child already possesses the innate tools to navigate the fire.
Wow.
It is a deeply empowering narrative.
And it forces you to look at the inflection points in your own life. Like, how often does a massive life event, whether it's having a child, a devastating breakup, or a massive career failure, force you to instantly audit your environment?
Almost always.
You don't realize how much toxic, frivolous, dead weight you are carrying until you are suddenly required to carry something of actual profound importance.
Yeah, the fake friends and the shallow priorities just fall away.
Exactly, because you literally lack the bandwidth to sustain them anymore.
Priorities clarify themselves. And for an artist, that kind of intense, real-world grounding inevitably bleeds back into the art.
Which brings us to the final evolution we see in the source material. This newfound maturity didn't just change how Jacquees operates as a father, it completely shifted the sonic and thematic conversation he is having with his audience.
Moving into the current phase of his career, Jacques is highly self-aware about this shift.
Thori.
He admits that becoming a father allowed him to connect with his audience on a drastically different frequency. During the King of R&B era, he acknowledges he felt somewhat disconnected, almost like a kid playing a role, lacking the real-world stakes that produce resonant art.
He was a character in his own rollout.
Right, but now he is navigating the universal adult experiences. Complex co-parenting, the fallout of a public engagement ending, the daily grind of raising a son. He has finally entered the shared human experience.
And you can hear the pivot immediately in the music. He highlights his single, Accuse Me, from the Mood 2 album.
Want to depart?
Yes. This track isn't built on a hypothetical friend zone aesthetic. It is a direct, hyper-vulnerable exploration of the breakdown of his relationship. He drops the armor and actually talks about the mechanics of the failure.
He views this personal pivot as indicative of a larger, much-needed generational shift across both R&B and hip-hop.
He does. Jacquees argues that genuine, unfiltered feelings are finally returning to the forefront of the music.
Thank goodness.
He suggests the era of the hyper-stoic, emotionless, heavily medicated artist is beginning to fracture. And to contextualize this, he references a specific, deep conversation he had with Dre, a legendary figure in the industry.
Okay.
They discussed how vulnerable, narrative-driven tracks from the past fundamentally shaped their understanding of the world. Jacques specifically points to the impact of the song Hate It or Love It by The Game and 50 Cent.
Which is a fascinating reference point for an R&B singer.
It is. He talks about how hearing a rough, hardcore rapper like The Game openly rap about his deeply confusing childhood, the complex dynamics of his mother's romantic relationships, and the raw trauma of his upbringing.
Yeah.
It rewired Jacquees' understanding of what a song was allowed to do. It gave him permission to explore his own pain.
That makes total sense.
Jacquees theorizes that if people are constantly shelled in, if the culture demands they suppress their reality and they can't express themselves through their art, that unexpressed pressure eventually forces them to do crazy stuff in the real world.
It is a remarkably astute observation regarding the mental health crisis often seen among young men in the entertainment industry.
Absolutely.
The art form must function as a pressure valve. If vulnerability is penalized in the music, the toxicity will inevitably manifest in destructive, often tragic behavior outside of the studio.
But we have to make a crucial distinction here. Shasi is embracing vulnerability, but he is absolutely not softening his core identity.
No, not at all.
He is still deeply, fiercely unapologetic. Let's not forget, we are analyzing a man who literally has the word confidence permanently tattooed across his neck.
The tattoo he got when he was just 17 years old.
Which says everything you need to know about his psychological baseline.
Seriously.
Think about the audacity. of a 17-year-old permanently branding their throat with the concept of confidence. He says it was heavily inspired by Lil Wayne, who famously stated that confidence is a stain they can't wipe off.
Right.
When you brand yourself like that before you are even an adult, it means self-belief isn't a marketing gimmick you put on for an album cycle. It is the structural foundation of your personality. So even when he is bearing his soul on a track like Accuse Me, he's doing it with his chest out.
It is a highly specific, very potent brand of vulnerability. He isn't asking for pity. He is reporting live from the front lines of his own chaos with the absolute unshakable certainty that his story is vital.
And you see this exact blend of vulnerability and ironclad confidence in how he controls the media now.
Yeah, he doesn't play games anymore.
He flat out refuses to be a prop for someone else's viral moment. During the Breakfast Club interview, he recounts a story about a different interviewer who tried to disrespect him for clicks. The interviewer mockingly suggested that Jacquees should get the rapper Future to executive produce his next album.
Which on the surface might sound like a normal music question, but it is actually a deeply condescending insult.
Totally.
It implies Jacquees is currently failing and needs a bigger, more relevant artist to come save his career.
Exactly. And what makes it incredibly embarrassing for the interviewer is that, as Jacquees quickly points out, Future already did executive produce one of his previous albums.
Oops.
Yeah, big oops. So the interviewer wasn't just being disrespectful, he was entirely uneducated on the artist sitting right in front of him.
How did Jacquees handle it?
He shut the entire dynamic down instantly. He essentially drew a line in the sand, making it clear, I am a real human being navigating a real life. This is not a Twitter thread. You are not going to sit across from me and play with my name for algorithm engagement.
Good for him.
And what raised the stakes even higher was that his son, Snow, was sitting right there in the room with him while this was happening.
He is actively curating his environment in real time, enforcing boundaries that he previously might have let slide during the height of the King of R&B chaos. And this actually brings us full circle to the overarching framework of Garrett S. Moore's YouTube analysis.
Yes, let's tie Garrett's perspective back in because it perfectly contextualizes this evolution. At the end of his breakdown, Garrett notes how incredibly counseled, polished, and strategic Jacquees appears throughout the entire Breakfast Club interview.
Right, he's totally composed.
He isn't frantic, he isn't overly defensive, he is measured, yet completely authentic.
And Garrett uses this observation to pivot to a fascinating pitch for his own audience.
What's the pitch?
He introduces a concept he calls the Kingdom Matrix Kickstart. He advocates for using modern tools, specifically AI agents, to radically expand your knowledge base, build out your merchandise architecture, and ultimately seize total control over your path to capturing attention.
It sounds a bit abstract, almost sci-fi, but when you map it directly onto Jacquees' decade-long journey, it aligns perfectly.
It truly does. Let's synthesize these two threads. What Garrett S. Moore is teaching his audience how to utilize technology and strategy to command your own matrix, to manipulate your environment, to serve your overarching goals, is the exact theoretical equivalent of what Jacquees spent years learning to do manually in the brutal trenches of the music industry.
Jacquees has become the architect of his own narrative matrix.
Exactly.
He learned how to manipulate the system by claiming the crown to generate initial massive attention. He learned the devastating lesson of how method acting that matrix can destroy your real-world relationships if you fail to communicate.
A hard lesson.
Very hard. He utilized the cold mechanics of the legal system to construct a highly stable, secure matrix for his son. And now he knows exactly how to sit in a high-pressure interview room, perfectly balance raw, emotional vulnerability with a tattooed on the neck confidence, and completely control the energy and the narrative output.
He's the director now.
He is no longer reacting to the internet's hypercritique. He is actively directing the show.
He survived the crucible of the love you, hate you cycle and emerged as a fully realized sovereign operator within his industry.
It is a true masterclass in adaptation. So what does this all mean for you, navigating your own life right now? The mechanics we've discussed apply far beyond the music industry.
They apply to everything.
We all grapple with the tension between ambition and reality. I want you to reflect on your own matrix. Where exactly is the line for you?
Right.
How do you maintain unshakable, unapologetic confidence in your own abilities, declaring your worth to your industry, while ensuring you don't alienate and destroy the relationships that actually keep you grounded in reality? How do you fiercely protect your crown without crushing the people you love in the process?
It is the defining balancing act of any successful life. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
Something that builds directly on the concept of that secret R. Kelly vault we discussed earlier. We spend massive amounts of cultural energy analyzing, debating, and dissecting the art, the technology, and the ideas that are released into the world.
Great, we talk about what's in front of us.
But what about the ghost timeline?
The ghost time.
Exactly. If there are 25 fully realized tracks featuring Jacquees and R. Kelly tracks that undeniably exist but are sitting completely dormant on a hard drive, tracks that possess the literal potential to alter the entire generational conversation of modern R&B, it begs a massive question.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
How many other world-shifting collaborations across all mediums of art, literature, and technology are permanently locked away in secret vaults, hidden by legal battles, PR fears, or personal tragedy? How is the timeline of our culture being fundamentally altered, not by the masterpieces that are present, but simply by the masterpieces that are absent?
That is wild to think about. It makes you wonder how much of history is shaped purely by the things we were never allowed to see. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. We love untangling these complex narratives with you, and we warmly invite you back for the next time we take a deep dive.